Canada, in that their founding date is certainly a year and a couple months past mine. If you read Cannabis Culture and how they describe compassion clubs can start, they essentially describe how I started, but somehow my club doesn't fit their mandate. And so, or because they got a store first, they were before me. It's frustrating. Hillary's long gone and living in Quebec, I understand. But the organization in Vancouver, I understand, is still the largest club in Canada with well over 3,000 members. I'm not even sure, but it's still known in many ways as the flagship in Canada, to be sure. So there's really, when we talk about the medical use of cannabis in Canada, there's kind of two, I guess, parallel trains of thought that collide at times. There's the medical activists like myself and Hillary who've taken it upon ourselves to supply cannabis to sick people as a civic duty. And then there's the people that use health cannabis programs and do it as legally, if not completely and totally legally, according to the law, which has been created by people like us who continually are breaking the law. And so those two, I guess, persistent movements have really opened things up in many ways for a lot of possibilities in this country. One of the people who have been very forward in this campaign as well, who deserves a certain amount of credit, to be sure, is Grant Krieger. Grant's probably got the worst luck of any activist in the country. He seems to get busted driving, and his grow-ops, his growers get busted. Just one thing after another has happened to Grant, to the point where now I don't think he's really very active anymore, and others are picking up where he left off. But certainly Grant was trying to not only supply his own medical need in Calgary, one of the most difficult places I can imagine to do this work, but also tried to set up other small networks through kind of what you might call safe houses in different communities across the prairies. And so Grant was in an area that the costs of cannabis were quite high, the need quite stark because there was so little around, and the police and courts quite crazy about it. On the other hand, he did receive a really good court decision a few years ago. It hasn't been able to get him out of all the trouble that he's found himself in as each year progresses. Health Canada and their Crown prosecutors get better at defending their rules. And so Grant has, in the past, been given judicial protection for growing and supplying for medical purposes, but recently his attempts in court to prove that Health Canada and their laws are unconstitutional have not been so successful. And he spent some time in jail, I think 2 years ago now, and ended up with his health deteriorating quite a bit in a short amount of time. And as far as I know, that stuff is still under appeal. I haven't heard any decisions either way, and I think I would have by now. But anyway, Grant is plugging away, and there are many individuals like him who haven't been maybe that organized or that well funded, but they just can't say no when they see this obvious and immediate need in front of them. And Grant has lost, I understand, not only financially and time-wise, but his family has suffered significantly as a result of this. His children resent the time he spent doing this work. His wife has had all sorts of fights with them, and I can certainly, with my ex-partner, not Gail, relate to the stress that this can cause on your family too. And so Grant has suffered quite a bit, but is still quite proud of the work that he's done. And without him, and many other kind of silent heroes, you might say, this war would not have progressed as far. So just kind of digging up the history, because like I say, in the mid-90s, there was so much going on. Like right now, we're thinking, oh, it's 2009, we've done a lot of stuff. It would be fascinating to have just this glimpse of what was happening in 1996 alone, because even now, little bits and pieces are coming back to me. I got this photograph out of Cannabis Culture Online, the home of the Vancouver Medical 420 Club. I remember meeting Ernest standing here. He came over talking about his club and stuff. I never had the pleasure of going over to meet him and see what they were doing. But there have been many individuals that have tried to do things and it hasn't been able to succeed. And it's been something that, when you see this plant and how it works, any cost is worth it. But it takes a lot to get a medical club not only kind of established in some sense to open up the door, but to keep it going. And I really commend everyone in this country who's tried, let alone the ones that have succeeded. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the MMAR. I want to talk more about kind of medical cannabis distribution and stuff. But really, we can't go and talk about the clubs without talking about the MMAR. And Terry Parker here is the one that sort of cracked it open. The decision to force the MMAR was made in July 2000. So we're coming up 9 full years since that time. And it's been a process that many people have benefited from. But really, it's been a very cumbersome process. Like I say, we covered it in class before, but I don't think, or I can't remember if we showed a picture of Terry. But what the MMAR has done is, on one hand, it's given people, the license to grow for themselves and for another person, and Health Canada will give you their pot. It's supposed to be the alternative to compassion clubs. The government somehow, in their thinking, wants to discourage professionals like me and wants to have people growing their own cannabis. Now that hasn't stopped people from trying to be professionals in this movement without actually getting a storefront. And there are many individuals and organizations that are getting designated licenses from the government in the hope that they can make a living from that. Some of the examples I could use would be the local, it just started up last fall, Canada's medical marijuana store. Kind of a perfect example of how these laws are being really kind of maligned so that some people can make money under the guise that they're doing it for medical purposes, but really to try and open up a large business and potentially make thousands of dollars.